Thank you for being with us here at Paths to Power for Hope and Time Warner Cable. We appreciate you being with us. We also encourage you to ask your questions by hitting the Ask a Question button. Type it in, get it to us. Our last guest is someone who, there's a lot of information and there's a lot going on, and it's a great opportunity to ask Dr. Victoria de Francesco-Soto some questions. She is a scholar, a political analyst, and is here to wrap up this this webcast, and will be the keynote speaker here in Sacramento at Hope Latina Action Day. Thank you very much for being here, Doctor.
My pleasure.
It is just an honor to have you here. You kind of give us the opportunity to tie it all together. We've had somebody from Hope here talking about the aspirations of the participants. We've had the chair of the Latino caucus. We've had a member of the assembly. What I'd like to ask you is the bigger picture, not just in California or here in Sacramento, but what do you see going on to help move the power of the Latino population, which the census tells us is a potent force. It's a potent force in economics and in marketing and other things. How do we translate that into power at the political level?
We need participation at all levels. So one of the key aspects of democratic participation is voting. And so a lot of our efforts have gone toward voter mobilization, voter registration. And that's important. We need to keep pushing there. But I think there are some other aspects that we lose sight of. First of all, if we want to have a voice, we need to be at the table. And that entails running for office. And organizations such as Hope are so crucial because they get these women who are passionate and talented and energetic and give them that nudge that they need. They already have the raw material. Now it's making the decision to take that leap. The other factor that I think is going to be very important in the short to medium term is financial contributions. The Latino community needs to expand the way in which we get politically involved. Voting, running for office, licking envelopes, marching, but it's also opening up our wallets. And that goes from a $2,000 donation to a $5 donation. You know, I was just joking with some girlfriends last night, we'll go out and buy a $5 latte, but then we don't think about why don't we donate politically. So I think in order for our numbers to reflect our political voice, we need to go about political participation in a diversified way.
Give me some other examples, because that's really interesting. I know that it is that, the Obama campaign touted the small donor. With social media now, there's that ability to have the
donations.
Yeah, exactly. How do you go about doing that and making that impact not just the Latino community, but others who might support a Latino candidate who are not in the Latino community necessarily?
Well, we need to connect with voters on their level. So if we want to get donations from folks who are parents, they're middle-aged, you go to them maybe in town halls, and there you ask them for their donations. There's some very interesting technologies that are coming out that allow for real-time donations. So it's not just writing a check or even sitting at your home computer and making a donation, where you can actually have someone with a machine and they swipe your credit card right there and the donation automatically goes in. For teenagers or for young adults who are very mobile, making it easy to donate online or through their mobile devices. Maybe for our older folks, for our grandparents, is pursuing that old-fashioned way of writing the checks, understanding the demographic and knowing how to connect with them.
Now, how do you get the young voter involved? The Latino population skews younger than the general population. How do you get that powerful and potent future engaged today?
First of all, is having them recognize how politics is applicable to them. I think that when young folks think about politics, they think about Capitol Hill and people in suits and very rigid and staid. But if we translate it, I think even more into what's happening locally. Hey, if you want to go to college and get some student loans, vote. Donate those $5, donate those $10, because it does affect your day-to-day. The thing is, young folks have just not tended to see it. I feel cautiously optimistic that that's going to change, because we see nationwide, and in particular with the Latino community, organizations crafting those targeted messages, saying, this is how it affects you, and hey, this is how you can connect with us.
Now, there tended to be a drop-off in the young voter from 73, which ironically, when they called off the draft, decreased, a blip with Obama. What do you think is going to be coming this next election cycle?
The challenge is steep. I'm not going to lie. Young folks, as you said, since 73 have not turned out at the same rates as older demographics. We have been through a very tough recession, so I think there is some danger for apathy. The trick is going to be changing that frustration and channeling that frustration away from apathy and into mobilization of, look, if there's ever a time to get moving and make a difference, this is the time. So I think a lot is going to depend on the mobilizing forces beyond the youth population.
Before we get to the questions from the participants, there's one I've wanted to ask you. You know, in Los Angeles, Tom Bradley formed a coalition and was able to become the mayor of a city with a 10-12% African American community. Antonio Villaraigosa ran saying, I'm not the Latino mayor, I'm Angelino's mayor. In Massachusetts, my original home state, you had Ed Brooke, who was a senator, and you have Deval Patrick now. How do we take the next step to say, okay, the census and redistricting has created Latino districts. How do we make that next step where broad-based support for Latino candidates, not just in those districts, but across the board, becomes the norm?
I think you yourself mentioned it, and that you need to localize the issue and localize the election. If you try to differentiate yourself, I'm running on the Latino ballot or the black ballot or the white ballot or the youth ballot, people are not going to want to connect with you at an emotional level and then further down at a political level or a financial level. So it's saying, I am one of you, and giving tangible examples. We can always focus on differences. Let's focus on similarities. You know, sometimes it's not what necessarily makes the news, the good news of, hey, look at all of these different groups of people coming together, working together. What makes the news is the inter-minority shootings, you know, the violence or the epitaphs, but there are 9 to 10 examples of positive cooperation.
So this is somebody from New Orleans that just seems like they are begging to be given that last encouraging shove. What would you recommend to women to convince them to run for office?
If not you, who? And I say this because we have, especially as a minority community, as women, we are skilled at multitasking. We can do a lot of things at once. We can run a family, we can run a business, we can make sure the kids are doing their homework. And that is a skill that readily translates into governing. And I think that push is what we lack sometimes. And here is where organizations such as HOPE are so critical. It's there, it's this, that little bit of a nudge.
And from San Diego, the question is about overcoming the fear of entering into that political process. And someone from San Francisco asked, how do you deal with inappropriate behavior and derogatory remarks from men about women in this process?
These are two key questions, two very difficult questions, but important questions. The first related to running for office, I go back to my first response of, if not you, who? Who can better represent you and your interests than yourself? And the second is, if you are still not sure about running for office and you have that inclination to do so, but you're still figuring it out, start small. You don't have to start off running for governor. You don't have to start off running for, you know, a key position. You can start off running for the PTA. You can start off running for a board position in your local neighborhood association. So start off small, get the hang of it, and then you can proceed.